Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome on behalf of our Honor Society of Entertainment Arts and the Professional Development Committee. Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of our Industry 101 series called Award-Winning Vision. Today, we're honored to welcome Emmy Award-winning filmmakers Susan Cooper and Paul Taublieb, founders of Taublieb Films, as they share career insights on storytelling, resilience, and creative leadership. Leading today's conversation is our moderator, Dan Lorenzo Leonard. Thank you for being here. We ask that your mics remain muted for the duration of the show. And with that, Dan, we'll hand it over to you.
I'm Dan Lorenzo Leonard, and welcome to another episode of Industry 101, Episode 2, Award-Winning Vision. Now, when we interview talented, successful individuals to find out their successful actions so our students here at the LA Film School can apply it to their upcoming careers. And today, we have a powerhouse couple proving that if you choose your partner wisely, great things can happen. Paul is a multi-Emmy award-winning filmmaker known for his bold, character-driven storytelling across documentary and sports entertainment. He started out as a writer for surfing magazines before leaping into film, which I believe his first written and produced project, he'll verify, was Ringling Brothers' How to Be a Clown. Sounds good to me since I attended clown school. And he would later go on to work with major networks and streamers and is one of the founders of Taublieb Films. His other half, Susan, also a multi-award-winning filmmaker and entertainment executive with more than 3 decades of experience in film, television, and documentary production. She is also the co-founder and executive producer of Taublieb Films and has also dedicated much of her career to child development and education. We all know and love her from her social media videos providing advice to filmmakers and wearing her cinematic glasses. There they are. Let's all stand and put our hands together for Susan Cooper and Paul Taublieb. How are we doing today?
Great. Thank you for your kind words.
Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way. How are you doing, Miss Susan?
I'm great.
Wonderful. Well, let's just go right into it. We have many people watching. You know, we're all called to, this is a question for both of you. We're all called to or motivated to a particular career. Looking back on yours, what first motivated you to become a producer, and how did that passion lead you into film and television?
Go ahead, Suze.
Oh, I loved television growing up. That was something, and I'm laughing. My parents used to say, you watch too much television, and it became a career. I love the movies. I love the darkened theater. And to that, I want to jump in and say to any of you, and I know you're not all in Los Angeles, but please do go to the website. If you cannot go in person, go to the American Film Market website. If I can have one thing happen after our talk today, that will cost you nothing. The reason I want to say that is it was so unusual. I worked for Saban and for Disney, and in both places, even though I was a producer, I reported to the head of distribution and the head of marketing. That was incredibly unusual. It set me on a career path that was extremely helpful because I had to understand the money and the business. And if you go to the American Film Market website, you will see that it has a bunch of tabs. And it'll have exhibitors on those tabs, who's attending. You've all heard of Sony, Disney, the big distributors, but there are hundreds of small distributors, and they're listed right in that website with all their emails and all the films they've made. They are reachable. Now, they're not going to just respond if you just email, hey, I'd like to meet you, because that's not going to help them. But if you go to that and you study them and you think of a great reason to reach out because you do have a project that's ready, or you want to learn about what it is they're looking for, you can then look them up. Often the individuals have podcasts they've done. They speak all the time. Paul and I have a distributor who is always we have many, but is always at AFM. And there's podcasts on her, and she's had full explanations of what are they looking for. These are the small distributors that you can begin with. I started by making I actually started in animation and children's programs at CBS, but eventually I got to Saban Entertainment and I started making lower budget feature films. I made those under $1 million films. I made very good bad films. That led to The Vow because I was looking at true stories. True stories is another incredible way to launch your career. Paul and I have been successful and have been able to attract talent because our stories are often true. The Vow with Channing Tatum and Rachel McAdams is true. All of our documentaries, which attracted Josh Brolin to be the host, are true. And also the fact that my husband, which you'll get to meet, is crazy. So he gets along very good with Josh and the talent. So I'm saying to you, please go to the website. My dream is that you'll all attend AFM, even without projects, just to walk around, look at the distributors, also go to the sessions. Again, they'll have programs and sessions on the tab. It drops down and it has Film Finance 101. You will learn, why do movies get made? How come you'll watch something one day and go, how did that get made? That's awful. Like, you can learn right there because there are people like myself both teaching and taking those classes. One of the young people that I work with went to AFM and then was having a coffee and happened to meet a distributor. She's an actress, and she's now been in 2 films just because of that coffee. There are thousands of people gathered together just for you. Now, AFM does cost money. It was in Santa Monica, then it was in Las Vegas. It's usually in November, but the website is a great teaching tool. And I have a personal thing. I go crazy because film school students need to go to the AFM. My hope is several times before you graduate, because then you're learning what buyers are looking for. Now I'm going to hand it over to my husband.
Now, before we hand it over to him, you said go to the website. Now, if we're studying a particular individual, let's say a individual, and then we know a little bit about him, can we then just cold email him or her and try to get a dialogue going for like a log line for a project we're trying to sell?
They don't have time for that. As you can understand, right? That doesn't make sense. In other words, yes, the answer that you have a great question, and the ultimate answer is yes, you want to build a relationship. But people don't have time to go, hey, so nice to meet, right? They're just trying to make a living. Distribution guys are looking for product that they then license or sell and get paid to do so. But by looking at all the movies, you can find a distributor that fits you. You're like, oh, I make that very kind of product. And these are lower budget films. They're under $1 million. Some are way under $1 million, but they look like they're $3 to $5 million. And you can learn, like, where are these distributed? How are they making money? This will begin the process. So first, learn who they are, look them up, and then here's the trick. You have to create a reason why they want to talk to you so you can be complimentary. One clever thing is you can all interview them, right? I'm doing a school project. I'd love to interview you. And now you've met them, just like you've met us. There's lots of creative ways in. I am a hustler by nature. So I want all of you to go, okay, you're going to have to build relationships. That is how Paul and I have gotten to where we are. And some take years. When we did a project years ago, there was only one television actress that could get it made. She was very big at the time, and that's Jane Seymour. Took me 2 years. 2 years of finding ways to get to her, head of development, sending little gifty items, baking, cooking, whatever the hell it took. This is what you learn as a producer to do. How do you do this? Because people are not interested in you. They're interested that you're interested in them. So you become indispensable in some way, and it can happen with very big time people. And then often they have a producer, a co-producer, somebody below them. So don't look at just the big names, the head of, say, distribution at one of these smaller companies. Look at the intern, look at the smaller person, right? They're powerful. I was started as a secretary. If you can get to the assistant, your life can change. That's a person who is developing a career. They will usually answer an email, but they're not looking to dialogue and fix your project. They're looking you to come to them when your project is ready. Be their solution.
Good advice, Miss Susan. Thank you so much. And Mr. Paul.
She's not really giving herself enough credit. On the movie we did with Jane Seymour, we knew she was the right person for this particular project. It was later a movie we did for Showtime. about a famous historical figure. And what Susan, I'm happy to speak about my wife, did was she befriended the assistant who wanted to be a producer and said, look, if you help us get this to Jane, we'll make sure you get attached as a producing credit. And here was a woman who was Jane's assistant, was close to her. And so now this woman was motivated, not because she was cared about us, she was caring about her own career. And the project, the other thing was the project was really good. It was perfect for Jane Seymour. It was just absolutely the right project for her, a British actress from the 1800s who helped end slavery in America, named Fanny Kimball. And so by engaging the help of the assistant, Susan was able to have a motivated person on the inside. And then it was like, well, you're going to need to have the right writer with the project. Because all we had at that time was the idea. And again, what Susan did was she said, well, who's the perfect writer for this project? And, and we found, what was his name again, Susan, who wrote the script for Fanny?
Oh my God. I have that name thing. He's blanking on me right now. I'll have to look it up on our own site.
He had written Scarlet, the sequel to Gone with the Wind.
Chris Lofton.
Yes, right. That's right. And he had written Scarlet, the sequel to Gone with the Wind. So now it's connect the dots. So it's like, okay, Jane is the right actress. Here's the right writer. Now, these people had nothing to do with the project. We had no money to spend.
We were nobody. We had never done, this was a $5 million TV movie, but that was big for us, big jump in that. And it was the quality of the material. Fanny Kimball is a real life person who's amazing. So it was very hard for Jane to say no, or Chris Lofton. Jane was at the top of her career, and Chris was one of the biggest television writers of big miniseries at the time.
So if you find people who it just sort of the gears click, it has to be a perfect fit. Here was the guy who had written Scarlet. So he had written, he was in the Civil War era. He was a premium guy. Writers tend to, if you can really get them to respond. Here was an actress who was British playing a great unknown historical British actress, because the woman, Fanny Kimball, was actually an actress from the 1800s. So it was like, of course I want to play this role. One of the funny stories, there was a bunch of funny stories with that project, is, Chris, because we couldn't pay him, he couldn't really write a treatment because he was in the WGA. So as we were pitching it, he had pages, but he could never give anybody the pages initially, because we didn't hire him as a writer, and a writer at that level can't write unless they're engaged.
He had no money.
We had no money, but he had notes. So it was in the meeting, he goes, well, here are my notes. It's not an actual treatment, but of course it was a treatment. But that way we could be in the meeting with the executives. And this is a funny story. We were in the meeting with CBS, which is where we thought we were going to sell this, because at the time Jane was on CBS. And we're pitching, and Chris Loft and Jane is in the room. Her husband, who's a director, is in the room. And the story is an unbelievable story. And I'm noticing the woman, the executive, is looking sour-faced the entire meeting. And I couldn't figure it out. Here's the star in the room and this top writer. And we finished the pitch, and she goes, no. And we're shocked. She goes, I studied history at the University of Pennsylvania, and I've never heard of this character. I think you've made this up. Now we're sitting there with the woman's biography. We had the book that the woman had written. And the woman had so much ego, she couldn't believe that this incredible historical figure existed, and she hadn't heard of her. So her ego, so we ended up not selling to CBS, and then we were fortunate enough to sell it to Showtime and get made and won a bunch of awards.
And we sold to Showtime. This is funny too, because Jane agreed to get naked. And she said the most marvelous words. In the end, we just did the side of her body. But she said, I remember being so nervous to ask her. And she said, I look marvelous now, darling. Why not now? And what could there be a better project for than to get rid of slavery and to honor Fanny? I'm in. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh. And Jane did 52 costume changes in the heat. That woman is a worker. So that's the other thing Paul and I learned a lot of respect for, is these actors and actresses that have kind of made it to where they are. They're usually really nice people. People hear all kinds of things. Her day was unbelievable. 18-hour days in the heat. We actually filmed in Toronto and then the South. Paul was on set every day. It's absolutely exhausting shooting all night. It's a rough job. And we were very grateful to her for also being involved to help us sell. We became a team. Her husband, Chris, the writer, who had to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. That's what writers have to do. So I know a lot of you are writers. because there was what we thought was good. There was what's historically correct. There's how to make a movie that's entertaining. And then there's the network executives or the studio executives giving notes. And I was very lucky. Back to my husband, I remember like fighting with him all the time going, what do you mean you can't make them say the words the way that we want certain words to be? And he's like, you don't get it. Like, that's not going to happen here this way. Right. So people used to tease me that I channel Fanny Kemble. I still do. And I would still love to do a big motion picture. I've never stopped trying. The BBC has done a lot on this character, but I actually have on our wall a piece of writing that she actually wrote. But it's just to the power of one person that I want to speak to you as all of you as students. You know, here was an actress, a young woman, nobody, from England, and she really had a huge impact on why the England quit funding the South, which is why the South fell and really became an end to slavery, and how this one woman was willing to risk her life, give up her own children to do something outrageous. I also learned a very powerful lesson about myself, is that I don't have that kind of guts. I like to do movies and series about people who are strong like that. Eddie Aikau, who's a surfer who gave his life. We often are working and doing things about great people, but I am not them. I just tell stories.
Well, thank you for that. That is great. I love that. Definitely motivated. That I see how motivated and hungry you guys are. Now, Susan, back on January 21st, 2023, one of your first post sharing advice, you mentioned how you cold called Josh Brolin's agent, which took so much initiative. And like you said, you're hungry. So I love that. How can filmmakers, these students, use that approach to build connections, get a script read, or just open doors for them?
It's back to the material. And then I'll let Paul speak to this because he is a journalist. So he's always watching. He's always listening. He's found Fanny came to me through a professor, but almost every other project has come to Paul, or he was able to get the rights because of his integrity. So it's the material. The material made it easy for me to have the guts to just cold call. A fun story about that is the gentleman that answered the phone, his name was Kevin Hussey. He was the second secretary to Michael Cooper, who is a giant agent. And I said, please, Josh will care about this, and at least get the material to him because it's so important. He got me to Josh's personal assistant, and we were able to bond. And two fun things today. I used to say to her, oh my gosh, Josh is crazy. I sure hope you're not in love with him. Well, they're married with 2 kids and we're all close. And the other is Kevin is now a giant agent at Range Media Partners, and he works with us today because I said thank you. After he got us this, just for being an assistant, and he had the kindness to get us to one more assistant, it changed our lives.
Now, how did you get to him being the second assistant? Did you just start cold
answer the phone? Yeah.
Oh, he just answered the phone. So you're building relationships, having affinity with one another. So that could be what if a filmmaker has a good project, they could.
You have to
do the
have
same
the
thing.
material though. You can't go, let's talk, and you can't say anything about yourself. They do not care. Our material was so strong. It has to be. Go ahead.
It's like I said, his gears clicking. This particular case, Josh Brolin, he was a surfer. This was a surfing related project. And we knew he would resonate to it because we knew about his past. So again, we're not fulfilling. Susan said so wisely. It's not about you. It's about them. He would respond to it. And when Susan said to the agent, just mention this name Eddie Aikau to Josh, and just say the name. He's a hero. He's a wonderful guy. And took numerous phone calls. Susan didn't just do this once. It was building a relationship. It wasn't about us. They want to keep their client happy. They want to make money. And so when the agent finally said to Josh, hey, I got to keep this person driving me crazy, mention this guy named Eddie Aikau. I'm sure I probably mispronounced the name. And Josh said yes. The agent couldn't believe it. Like, oh my God, and called back and goes, I don't know who this Eddie guy is, but I got to sign him too. Of course, he had been dead for 20 years.
It'd be a little hard to sign him.
But it's been hard to sign him. But the point was we were fulfilling their needs. They don't care about your needs. They were like, wow, Josh is my client. For some reason, he responded to this. This is going to help me. I now look good. I brought my client something, that's positive for him. And Josh and I, we began this relationship, which exists to this day. He's narrated about 5 of our documentaries now. And, we're working on a couple different things together. But it was only about him. In all the years, and I've known Josh for a long time now, he doesn't really ask that much about me. You would think that Josh Brolin, he's a very nice guy, happens to be very pleasant. But, it's you have to understand. So if you pick up the phone, you have to have like a loaded gun where all the chambers have something that's not about you. I have a script. Here's the topic. Here's why it's right for the client. Here's, he happens to be a skydiver, or you have to have researched everything about that person. And then it has to logically instantly make sense. Oh, you have a heist movie and the character is 27 and he has this interest. And oh my God, my client happens to also, it has to really,
Yes.
really.
No, that makes so much sense. I absolutely love that. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. That's brilliant. And congrats on all that success with Mr. Josh and one of my favorite Goonies. So what key decisions and successful actions did you take in your career that led to you to start your own film company? Because we have so many students that want to start their own film company. So what actions could they apply that you did?
The most important thing, as Susan said, is material. It's having, now it can be, and that material can be in many forms. It does not have to be a finished script. A script is a difficult thing to create, as we all know. But if you own a book, or if you own the rights to someone's life story, or if a newspaper article, something that is meaningful. The other thing I would say is, a lot of projects that people bring to me who say, "Oh, I had this great idea." It's more, a lot of times, and maybe this is a little bit harsh, but a lot of people have what is a good hook, but not the complexity of a 90-minute movie, whether it's a documentary or a feature film. If you're going to have 90 minutes or 2 hours of something, there's got to be a lot of material, a lot of stuff. Now, even the great scripts can be relatively simple, but you still need a really fleshed out, finished piece of product. Now, everybody's looking for good material. I mean, that's the difference. And also, today versus when we started, it was very stratified and ossified, the system. If you wanted to get your material to someone, now, you can go on people's Twitters and people's, X files and reach people. But it's like you're shooting a bullet through a maze to hit a tiny target. But if your material is right for that actor or actress, or if you're trying to find a writer, that's the other thing about writers. Writers are, which most of you probably are very passionate people. But if you're saying, I want to attach a writer or have an idea that needs a writer, and you'd be talking about Chris Lofton from the Fanny Kimball Project. We knew he had done this. He had done the sequel to Gone with the Wind, a movie called Scarlet. So he was deep in the Civil War world. He knew that in the post Civil War era. So when we had a project that was set in that world, we knew it would resonate with him. He was also at the time approved by CBS. So we went to him with no money. And so it's like putting a puzzle together, not just like, hey, I've got this great idea. How come nobody's giving me $1 million? It's not going to work that way. It has to be proactive. You have to then do your research, and then really almost anybody is reachable. We have another project right now that's based on a documentary I did called Blink of an Eye. It's a true story. It's a NASCAR-related story. It's a documentary. You can see it on all platforms. It's won a ton of awards. And, we're looking for the right actor to come in on it. And at one point, I was going the acting route. Now, I had a documentary to show people. So that becomes, very valuable. What material do you have? What is your presentation? Today with AI, there's a lot of things you can do. And we were able to now attract a top writer who normally gets $1 million a script, which we don't have $1 million. But he looked at the material. His career is kind of in this in-between place. And he was like, wow, this could be my big project right now. And in this case, we also brought in another producer. Sometimes you want to share, you want to build a coalition, you want to create momentum. So we went back to the producer we did The Vow with, a gentleman named Roger Birnbaum. If you look up Roger Birnbaum on IMDb, he's made about 120 movies. And he was co-chairman of MGM, from James Bond to Sixth Sense, and wow, on and on and on and on, a legendary, iconic producer. And I attached him. I didn't need him. He didn't have nothing to do with the project. But that weight now allowed us now to go get this writer because, wow, you have Roger. he can pick up the phone when the script is done. So we have a writer who's, now writers can also drive you crazy. And this one is driving us a little bit crazy because he hasn't finished his freaking script and he's behind and we're ready to kill him. But
I like that we saw you guys laughing because I'm sure all of you are writers and I'm
Yeah.
sure that you don't like us telling you what to do. But I want to tell you quickly on the
No,
bat.
that's good. I'm actually about to
were-
graduate with writing, so I
were
get what you're saying. We're all crazy.
72 drafts in for a first draft. 72.
Whoa.
So if you can't handle that, don't do it. Don't think because that's the reality. Go ahead, Paul.
well, so by having Roger with his credentials, the writer said, I will write this script for you for free. I will research it. I will talk to the real life person. He's a little bit late because, he's actually made another movie in the interim with Shirley MacLaine, actually, his particular writer and director. And he also wants to direct it. So that's one of the reasons he was involved. But it's building that kind of a coalition. And it all goes back to the material. The story, blink of an eye, you can watch the documentary.
You talk a lot about both of you about the story. Now, how do you know if you have a good story? If you're writing it or, of course you're going to think it's great because, you did it. How do you know if your story is great?
When I was a newspaper guy, because my background is as a journalist, the old story is dog bites man, it's not interesting. Man bites dog, it's interesting. And that's really all it is that, does your gut tell you this is something that's interesting? Now, what you think is interesting and what the market thinks is interesting, those can be two very different things, but there's no way to answer your question. Is it really compelling? Is it interesting? Does it have complexity? And the other thing is we did another project, Susan and I, that died. And it was with an actor named Richard Crenna, who you may remember from the Rambo films. And we had found a true life story. We went to Crenna. He loved it. The network had a pay or play deal, which meant they had to make a project with this guy or they had to pay him. So that's was a dream scenario because they didn't want to give him $1 million and have him do nothing. So they found the writer. The writer writes the script. We get the script. We're all excited. And I'm reading and flipping through the pages. And Richard Crenna, page 10, where's the Richard Crenna character? Because this is a Richard Crenna vehicle. That was the point of this project. And the character doesn't show up to like page 50 of a 100-page script. So we call the writer up and go, this is a star vehicle for this guy. And the writer was like, I had a different vision of it. I thought of it that he really wasn't the star. I'm making someone else the star. And I'm such a good writer, I can make it work. The network saw the script, project was killed on the spot because the writer had
years of work. Well, I don't know, 8, 9 years to get to that moment.
Well, our professors have taught us a lot about what just happened. So us writers at the LA Film School wouldn't let that happen. That's terrible that happened.
Thank you for creating writers that will care and be good. We always laugh. There's the famous movie, Babe, what's it, from years ago where they go to kill the writer.
Yeah. Can't think of I know which one you mean. I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah. No, but they're big on that. If it's your film that you're producing, you're writing, that's different. But if I'm working for Susan and Paul, I got to make their vision happen.
Writers, actors, the first thing the actor does when they get a script is they count their lines. They literally count their lines. So if you're writing a script, you're creating a commercial vehicle for someone, right? Yeah. This is their career. I pitched a project once to Joe that he didn't really like. And he said, Paul, I like this idea. He goes, but it's going to be my face 60 feet tall on that screen. And if the thing doesn't do well, they're not going to be mad at you. I'm the one who's going to have the pie on my face. So they look at it actors are very sensitive people. So they're reading that script that you're writing and that script has to be right for them. And it has to make them look good and be either a hero or a villain or a great character, whatever it is that fits their needs. So, when you're writing, it's really not about yourself. It's about you're creating a piece of merchandise. And so even though that sounds cold and calculating, it's okay. How does this work? Are there too many characters? Does my lead have enough roles? Is my is the B story fitting in here? How does this work together to create something that is that's something that's no different than imagine you're walking into Kmart or Walmart or your supermarket. You're creating a product and it's got to fit the marketplace. And so what is it you're creating in your story that's going to, because they don't care about you, your career, your life. They know you've written for 1 million hours and 1,000 trees have been slayed printing out scripts. They literally don't care. Yes. They care about, is this going to fit the marketplace? Is this right? And can I do this? So keep that in mind when you're writing. And then they'll come back to you and like even the script we're doing now, this NASCAR related one, we keep saying to ourselves, like, get the script in, because once we attach a star, it's going to get rewritten anyways. The actor's going to do, and then the director, in this case, we have a writer director, so it may not happen, but typically directors will take it and then they'll redo it for their own vision. A lot of it's ego, just they want to put their stamp on it. Sometimes, and for no more reason than that. And you're like, wait, you're just taking my script and change this, and they'll do it. And and once you
and they want writer credit, then
they want writer credit, or they want their creative imprimatur. Yeah.
And don't be upset about that. Your greatest honor would be to share credit with someone else. Don't worry. The Writers Guild is there to protect you. It's pretty fantastic. It'll make sure, because it can go into arbitration. They'll handle you. I am never called myself a writer. I write good enough to attract a great writer. If all of you may think you're the Michael Jordan of writing, but writing is not different than Michael Jordan. This is a gifted human who then worked unbelievable. This is really the reality of writing.
Well, I'm glad you said that about sharing, because I know, me being a writer, I always get afraid of that this director is going to want to be a co-writer and change things. It's like, I've been spending 4 years, a month, and you want a credit. So I'm so happy to hear you say, be honored to share the credit. That's amazing. And speaking of sharing, many of our students, along with me, are graduating this month, and they're going to be trying to break into the industry. Going back to my introduction, what was your first job in entertainment? But specifically in this question, what led you to get that?
I'm going to let Paul answer it too, but I want to tell you this is a great movie, because I love telling things in terms of movies. The movie's called The Player. It's Tim Robbins, who plays a ruthless Hollywood studio executive who murders the screenwriter. It's Robert Altman. It's a little slow, but Paul and I love anything that helps you teach. We love Get Shorty, the television series, which shows you that no one is more ruthless than the Hollywood executives, not the mob, not the FBI, not anybody. So watch, and they're actually very good at showing the development process. So Get Shorty, the series, which is different than the movie, The Offer with Miles Teller, about how they made the Godfather movies. He's not a writer. He's a producer. These are really fun, and I find them very helpful. And The Player. So go ahead, Paul. You can answer.
Well, you use the word job. If you're looking for a job, that's a different animal. That means you want to go work at a studio. You want to go in every day. You want to be part of a machine. And, that's that I can't really speak to, because I never had a job per se. We created our own company, have been independent, throughout our career. So a job is a very specific, but one thing that Susan has talked to a lot of her clients about is there are a lot of jobs in the movie industry that are separate from the making of movies. I mean, a movie is, there's studios where there's distribution, there's reading jobs, then there's marketing. There's many aspects to the movie making process. Now, jobs are very hard to find, but that's a matter of kind of have to come to LA, more or less, an entry level job. There's also jobs on movie sets. I had a friend who got in the business. He would go to movie sets in New York, where he was, and he would say, "Can I work for free for you? Can I just come on and get coffee?" And sooner or later, someone would go, "Here, go run to the coffee shop, get me 6 coffees, go do this," and for no money. But you begin a relationship, you begin a network. And if they like you, if you're a person who people get along, wow, that guy was great. And then he gets a phone call, there's another movie coming up. Hey, that kid was nice. Let me get him over here. And now you get a job, and you can work your way into the making of movies. Susie's working with a client now who we just spoke to, who's a painter, who paint, all those sets you see, those sets have to be painted. So he's a contractor. Now he wants to transition to another level. So there's the mechanical making of movies. Now, once you're in, now you're meeting people, you're talking to people, you're in the movie industry. So if you want to sell a script, there's no job for that. That's, maybe, and that's where, you go to the school like you guys have, and you have to create the material or secure the life rights to a true story, a book or a real life story. And that's another way to go. If you have that instinct, which is where my background is. Hey, because I was a journalist. It's a real story. It's a real person. How do I secure the rights? I'm right in the middle of a negotiation right now on a sports figure who I met with his mother actually yesterday up in Sacramento, an action sports athlete, a skateboarder. And I'm competing against another producer. who also wants the rights, another producer director.
So what's
And it was
involved
like-
in that? If one of us are like, I really like that story of his life. I mean, I just graduated. I want to do that. I want to write his movie and get it made. What are the steps to go about that?
It's a good question, and it's really, really important that you secure the paperwork of the owning. And what you're getting is an option, not a purchase. So what you're saying is, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have any backing, but I want to be able to sell this project. Let's say it's a really good story, like the movie The Vow, which Susie and I made.
Great movie, by the way.
It was a great story.
Great
came
movie.
out, hit the news. Everybody wanted it. I beat out 48 other producers who wanted the rights to that story. There was a
And what
little
did
bit
you
of money
do that beat
involved.
him out?
I went and met with the real life people. I presented myself, how I would tell the story, who I was as an individual. And in life rights, what you're saying to someone is, trust me to tell your story. I'm the one who's going to, because, and my honesty is what won me the thing, because I said to them, look, ultimately, if someone puts up, which they eventually did, $50 million to make the movie, the person who puts up the $50 million, they get creative control. You don't get stock control of your movie unless you want to write a check for $50 million, which most of these people do not. So you have to say to them, but my job is to be your advocate. I am going to help you protect your story, protect your integrity, and you need to trust me. Now, at some point, the real life person has to trust somebody. Now, this other producer who I was up against, who has to remain nameless because they're a multi-Academy Award winner, lied to them and said, oh, I'll give you control. You'll have input on everything. Don't worry. You're going to help me figure out who the actress is going to play you in the movie, and just blew so much smoke. And they were like, Paul, this other producer is going to give us all this control. And I said, read the contract
Didn't they
before
even
you
say
sign.
that they had a child who was dying or something?
There's one producer, to tell you how ruthless Hollywood is. They had verbally agreed to give me the rights. I get a phone call from the rights holders from The Vow. And they go, great news, Paul. We're signing with this other producer. I was like, what do you mean great news? I thought we had a deal. And they said, well, this other producer has a daughter who's in the hospital and is dying. And by signing with this other producer, they can afford an operation to save their daughter's life. And I go, whoa, slow down here. Who is this person? Turned out it was a complete lie. There was nobody in the hospital. It was strictly a way that a producer was trying to get the rights, played this card of like whatever. And it took me sort of calmly saying, who is this person? What's the story? Let's check into it. And then they realized that they had been lied to by a very, very big time producer who's won multiple Academy Awards.
A really key thing that I'm hearing, Paul, so I'm understanding it. It's always fun to learn after you've been with somebody over 40 years, something about them. So I'm grateful that he married me. But to help all of you, you can't be what you're not, and you have to be what you are. When I was 4.5 years old, people came into our home and I would try to sell them packs of seeds, because that was a thing that kids could do when I was young. I have been a salesman and a pusher, I don't know a better word, since I was born. So for me to cold call wasn't even scary. Paul was a journalist. He's always been observational. He always had an instinct for a good story. We mostly argue. Now, it's of great benefit on every project to have both of us when we do work together, because we argue the entire time, even about raising our kids. And it really works really well for them because it's two very different opinions. And then the coming of together is what makes it great. So what I want to tell all of you, and I think it's a famous Aristotle quote or something, is, like, know thyself. You can hear our stories, and some of you go, oh, that makes so much sense to me. Others are you like, I'm shy, I'm creative. Then what I would say to you is, you need a partner then. You need to find either someone a life partner or a business partner who is not you, who is those other things. In what we do, somebody has to not ruthless. That's not a real word, because Paul and I are very honest people. I think we have tremendous integrity. That's the other thing. We don't lie or mislead. Like, Paul was the right man to get Kim and Cricket Carpenter, who are the real people of The Vow. I was pregnant at the time and terrified. And I said to Paul, because we got offered a TV deal, and it would have made them like $100,000 or something. And I'm like, sell now. Oh my gosh, right? We have bills to pay. My husband held out and made them 4 or 5 times that amount of money by waiting to get a movie deal that I was not going to wait for. You know, I'm like, this is good. This is a miracle. What, are you crazy? We could look, because we could look. We also were, he would take the risk, right? We were going to lose that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they're waiting. So back to who are you? To create something and then actually get it made. Okay. And that means the money and distribution, post-production and marketing. I'm a natural marketer. I actually think those meetings are the best. It was weird at Disney and at Saban. I reported again to the head of marketing. I didn't mind hearing what it takes to sell. So to some people might call that a creative sellout. I think marketing is creative. I think The Vow was so successful because it launched Valentine's Day in the cold of February. So men didn't mind Channing Tatum. They were going to go to this movie. He's the lead, not the girl, even though it's a romantic story about what happens to her. So again, who are you? And then be realistic. You can ask your best friend, you can ask your mother, you can ask your aunt. And if they're like, you know, honey, this is not you, like you are never going to fly and dunk that ball, then you need a partner who's going to do that. You may need several. I'm very honored to say that right now I have a big franchise project with a 27-year-old incredibly talented young girl who blew my mind because she's an actress, but she's become a producer and she can write. It's taken years to get where we are. So she was 21 when we met. That's the other thing. Paul and I have friends of all ages, partners of all ages. He mentioned Roger Birnbaum. To get The Vow made, even though Paul had these people in the palm of his hands, he has a marvelous story he'll tell you about Roger, but Roger was beyond us. We still do this today. To make Blink, which is going to be an $80 million movie, we are known for making 30 to 50 to 60. But if we want to make 80 to maybe a couple of hundred, we're going to join forces with another producer. In this way, we're not different from you. And just know that every time we go to pitch, even though literally if Paul and I walk into Sony, we are staring at our poster that made that studio over $200 million. We are just like you. We're at the beginning. They don't care. Now they know the difference is though, they can trust us to make it. If you have no credits and you've never done this, you will have to join forces with your type of a company like us or a Roger Birnbaum or somewhere in between, which is why I'm always saying go to AFM, because that's crawling with, there's thousands of us and hundreds that can really get it made. You will have to join forces. We still do that. In Paul's world, he is probably one of the best documentary filmmakers in the world today. So other documentary filmmakers want him, right? They need him. That is the truth. If you're in certain other areas, so then you'll need whatever that is. I want to work in comedy now. So I want to work in happier projects. I can't stand to sit in the edit room any longer and just watch violence and terror. That's just where I am in life. I want these other things. My husband still loves those projects. So look for the people that you can build a team with, and they can be those assistants. As I said, Kevin Hussey years ago was the secretary. Now he's a big guy with power, and we've cultivated that friendship and waited all these years.
I think this is
go back to your question, Dan.
Oh yeah, yes.
About life rights, because that's an area that you asked.
Yes.
How do you secure the rights to a book or to your neighbor or to a newspaper article? Like I said, and there's plenty of stuff online to read about it, but it's really important. And particularly if it's a really good story, someone else may come along. You don't want to write a script and write a treatment and go pitch something you don't have the rights to. It's really important that you have the ability. So let's say your neighbor's car is for sale. You don't want, and this is kind of a little bit of a rough analogy. You don't want to go, oh, that car's for sale for $500. I'm gonna sell it for $1,000 and make some money on it. It's not really a perfect analogy. You don't want to go try to sell that car unless you're the only one who has the right to sell that car. Otherwise, it's going to be listed in the newspaper and you're out there trying to sell it and someone else will buy it. And it's no different than a story. So you find the key person in the story. Sometimes you need more than one person, but usually there's one key person who then brings everybody along with it who they can't make it without. And you go to that person. Again, online, you can find lots of documents and it does not cost money. Particularly if it's an unknown person, if it's a story in your local paper or something, or an old book, Again, if it's a book, you call up, you ask for the subsidiary rights. There's a whole department designed for that, and say, I want to option this story. And there's two ways from there to go about it. And the option means you have the option to then purchase the story in the future. You're not actually purchasing the rights. You're creating an option in order to produce, to get the rights in the future. So it could be a very simple document that says, for $1, I now have the rights for 1 year, extendable for a second year. And you want to get a couple of years because nothing happens in a year in this world. And then one thing that I have found,
especially in entertainment,
makes it easy to do is to say, you say, look, I want the rights to do this, and the purchase price will negotiate in the future. Now, it makes you a little bit vulnerable because they may say, well, I want $10 million. But what I have found is most people at the end of the day, if you get to the point where Sony or someone comes along, you say you put language in the document that says per common industry standards. And that sounds flexible, and it is. And what it means is, hey, you can't ask for $10 million because the common industry standard for a story like yours, and then there'll be examples, is a certain amount of money. And so and at that point you're talking about a deal. So it can be a very simple document, but that means, and then also when you then call Hollywood, or Susan goes, you meet someone at AFM, you go, I own the rights to this story. Immediately you sound professional. You now sound like, you could even say, I just got the rights to this script. Nobody really cares if you wrote it or not. They just want to know that the script is good. So I've heard of stories where someone has a script that they've written. They put someone else and make a made up name on the script. That's their script. But now they say, I'm a producer and I own the rights to the script. Now it sounds like they own something, not just a writer. So you now own something. You now act like a producer. It's a piece of material, and immediately it gets respected. Oh, you have a deal. You own a piece of property. You own this piece of intellectual property. So getting the rights, and it can be an individual, it can be a book. A lot of stories that I've done, you may be reading a newspaper article. You can go to the reporter who wrote the article and said, I want the rights to your article, or I'll bring you involved. That's also very typically done. It's a little bit dicier because sometimes the newspaper will claim ownership of the material, and the writer himself doesn't own the story that he wrote. You can get more complicated. But again, and there's lawyers in these days with what's online with AI and so on, but having the rights to something, and then you can say you own something.
You asked the question too for the things that you're writing, and I hope that you will do them based on true. In today's world, executives at most of these companies are using Greenlight, the AI tool. So send your scripts to the AI and get the comments, because that's what people are going to do. There's more than one. There's Claude.
You mean like put your script in there and say, rate this if it's good, or what do you think of it and all that?
Because it doesn't matter if you agree or don't agree. They're going to do it. And you might be like, whoa, this hurts my feelings a lot.
Now, with that, talking about AI and getting recommendations, can you tell me a time when you had a setback that tested your resilience? Because you guys have so much hustle, you're pounding the pavement. But tell me a time where it tested your resilience. And
there isn't a day that we don't have a setback.
Really?
There isn't a day.
That's absolutely correct.
Paul has a paperweight on his desk from my boss, Haim Saban's wife's daughter's bar mitzvah that says, never give up. Never give up. You just have to go, I'm not giving up. That's it. I mean, like, how do I give up when Fanny Kemble was going to give up her kids and try to end slavery? And I'm like going to complain that I have to make some extra.
You say it like that.
I drove to Sacramento just over this weekend to meet with the mother of this particular athlete. And I am up against one of the largest agencies in Hollywood, literally with one of the most famous names at the head of this agency. And they have a director who wants to make the same exact story of a life right for this particular athlete. And what I did was I found the hotel, just to show you how I'm still hustling, where I knew the family was staying, which was not the main hotel. So I could meet them for breakfast. And also that I had picked the same hotel and met with the mother. And I'm competing against a director who's as a documentary project.
Now, did you set it up before, like we're going to have breakfast, or did you just go there and try to?
Well, I made it sound very. I went there primarily to meet this person, but when I communicated with her, I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be there for something else. But there was no something else. It was really to meet her. So she felt no pressure because I made it sound like I was doing something else when really that was my agenda. I did a job for a guy in New York for an Academy Award winning producer named Alex Gibney, a company called Jigsaw Productions, won Academy Award, very, very, very famous producer. And they were in New York City. And I was one of a number of directors they were considering. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm coming to New York next week. Maybe we can meet in person. I had no plans to go to New York. And I said, oh, my sister's having an event. I'm going to be in town. Why don't we meet? And the guy was like, well, if you're coming to town, we might as well meet. And again, I had no plans of being there, but because I knew the advantage, if I could meet him in person, I would have a better chance. So got on the plane, went to New York, happened to see my sister while I was there as well, but got to meet them. And I would not have done it. And I got the job. And I did 2 episodes of an ESPN series that took me all over the world, to Africa and Europe.
What we're saying
hustle, build relationships.
As a writer, don't be thinking some agent is ever going to do anything for you, ever. You must, this is just my opinion, but in today's world, you must become a producer. It doesn't matter.
Why have that viewpoint of the agent's not going to do anything?
Because they don't. We don't have I've raised these agents, and yeah, they'll step in once we've done all the work to do the deal and take their piece of money. And sometimes you need to do that because they're involved with other talent that you need. They don't. And because also realistically, yes, they're going to do it for Josh Brolin. He's making them a ton of money. Less than that? No. What do they, if you sold a script for 10 or 20 grand, or Writers Guild minimum for a low budget, what are they going to live on? 4,000? For the amount of time, they can't afford to. They're not evil. They can't afford to. The system isn't made that way. You must do it. And the other quick thing I want to say, if I don't know how much time we have today, is for goodness sakes, get safe. Get a day job. Paul and I do branded content, social media, documentary, feature films. We were able to keep our crews working through COVID because we are always in all those areas. So it's marvelous to take care of old people. It's marvelous to walk dogs. You've got to pay your bills. We are always, all the time, concerned because we have a lot of people that we take care of, and it's changing all the time. AI, to us, this change and upset is good morning. This is normal. Paul has to walk into a meeting calm and cool, as if we're not concerned that our 3 sons have everything they need still. Right?
So with that, the safe job, I think that's great you say that, because especially being in entertainment. But when you're but how do you navigate and succeed balancing these creative visions with the practical challenges of
I didn't sleep for 20 years. Paul's laughing. It's the truth. When we did a kids series of videos. I had a day job at the time with Saban Entertainment. We did Kathy Lee's Rockin' Tots so I could earn enough with my husband to get a down payment. I had a day job, another job, and I just had a baby. When we sold Fanny Kimball to Showtime, I was in labor. I hit hold on the phone.
So, but when you have a creative vision for a project, and then you have the challenges of running the production, how do you deal with both of those and making sure that your creative vision is withheld, even though you have these partners and you have these other people that want this other vision? You
constantly have to, I'll let Paul do it his way, and mine is this. It's like marriage. It's like a partnership. Yours becomes ours. This is a team sport. Paul's a surfer. That's a one-man sport. He gets to do that his way on that wave. Movie making, it's a team sport. There's no you. That's just not real.
I would say, look, it comes down to, this may sound harsh, it comes down to muscle. Like when I make a documentary of a sports thing, I'm the big dog. I do it my way. It's my movie. Now, but on the other hand, I have a financier. Sometimes it's a brand, sometimes it's a network. Ultimately, they're going to tell me what to do. So you fight for your vision, but you have to understand how much muscle do you have? What kind of relationship do you want to build? Do you want to win a battle and lose the war and lose the relationship? So if they want something a little bit different, you have to then decide where your fight is. You want to fight for the integrity of your project. but at the same time, you don't want to fight for the sake of fighting.
Paul
You-
found too.
I like
ESPN
that.
gave
Fight
him
for the sake of
notes.
fighting. That's good.
ESPN gave him notes one day on a project, and Paul, I remember you saying, I think it was Eddie Aikau, these are great notes. I'm going to do them.
We did. If we finished a documentary about Eddie Aikau, a Hawaiian guy, ended up winning an award. It was an ESPN 30 for 30, and we sent the movie in, and they're a very hands-on group, and they said, we have a couple notes. We're going to send them to you. We love your film. We were like so relieved, right? And then all of a sudden, the email comes in. I'm in the office, and I said, print them out. And I hear the printer going. And now I'm hearing the printer going and going and going. And I'm like, oh my God, they said they loved it the way it was. And I just hear the printer just rattling
Note
along,
after note after note.
note after note after note. And I'm like, and also as the producer, because I was both I was involved creatively and the producer, every note means you're back in the edit room, which means you're spending money.
Yeah.
Which is on a fixed budget. I mean, that's your money is being spent. But the notes were brilliant, and they were very, very specific. Like there was one where they go, you made an edit where the guy's eye is blinking and your edit is on the eye blink. Move it one frame so the eye is enclosed when that's the minutia they had gone through with it.
I like that.
And I was like, wow, you made my movie, because it's ultimately my movie, better. They've really improved it. So there was 3 single page notes, but they were all clear. They were all addressable. None of them in any way undermined what the vision of the project was. And it made it better. When I was a journalist for a long time, I once had an editor. I wrote an article. I walked into his room, his office. He took my article, crumpled it up, threw it in my face and said, start all over again. This is complete shit, which was kind of harsh at the time, but it made me have to go back and rethink it. Then I had the same editor later on. I brought in the article, and he had gone through it line by line. And he was smarter than me as an editor. He wasn't the guy who could go out in the field and get the article, but as an editor, his craft made my article 1,000,000 times better with my name on it, right? I got the benefit of that. So if you work with good people who make Susie and I'll tell you another story. When we did The Vow, we were part of the producing team. And what Roger did was, who was the producer of the film, he goes, I want different producers to see the edits separate from me, so they can see it and then give me their notes without being influenced by sort of a group think. Because when you're in a group, everybody's sort of saying, what do you think? What do you think? Everybody's trying, particularly in Hollywood, nobody wants to say the stupid thing. So they sent Susie and I into a room to watch the cut by ourselves. And there was some real big problems with it, really big problems. And I don't want
5 minutes got pulled. That's how much. That's a lot.
Yeah. So, and the director had fallen in love with the star, and he had a certain proclivity towards a certain look, which was, his based on his background. But it was by going in and then going out and saying, we're really upset about this aspect of the cut, separate from being in a room with a bunch of other people. And we could say things we couldn't say in a room. Major changes were then made in the edit of the movie. I mean, movies do come together in post-production. I mean, that is
correct.
The
writer, that might hurt you, but the editor has a lot of power.
Editor, the producer, there's a big part of that. Look, that's the happy problem, Dave. By then your movie's sold, you're being made, you're in post-production. Then you can argue over the poster.
Producer, you'll still be there. There you go.
Right.
Now, you guys are great leaders, and you have some great advice, but what, is there a mentor or somebody that taught you all this, or someone you looked up to that helped you get where you are?
Susie.
Oh gosh. We want to say every boss we've ever had, every client we've ever had. Paul did a lot for Monster Energy, right? They backed a lot of the documentaries he did. Paul really adores, believes in, and finds their executives genius.
Is there a particular one that gave you advice that you still use today?
I do want to say a class I took. Robert McKee, MCKEE. He is an older guy, still offers advice online and webinars in story and in craft. I took that class. It was thousands of dollars. It's now much cheaper. Paul and I took it. You sat in a room for days, and he taught, and he has a book.
I would say the McKee thing is actually pretty important, because in Hollywood, the language of Robert McKee, who's been around forever, is very common in the rooms. When you talk about inciting incident, downbeat in the third act, building the steps of the middle, second act of a script, McKee has had a huge impact in the language of how you describe a movie. And he does these weekend seminars and has books. So from a script,
Now you're talking about
if
all
you're a
these
writer-
story structure points.
Yeah.
What makes a story worth investing then?
I have it for you. Did you cry? Did you laugh? Did you feel? I got to grab somebody in 90 seconds. It's the emotional connection you give the audience. If anybody can read your script and they're on page 10 and they feel nothing, you're in trouble. I need
Is that something where they literally will open up to like page 10 or page 15 or 22, and if they don't get it, then they're done? Because you hear that a lot.
There's no they fault. It's a movie. You got to grab them at hello.
Gotta grab them at hello. I like that.
Yeah, the people will, you can usually tell, within 10 to 20 pages, is this thing working or not?
Yeah.
And that's again, this idea of like, who's your star? Because they're thinking, I'm going to cast it. Is it commercial? What's the genre? I would also say, and this may sound a little cynical, having a good log line and a clear summary. I cannot tell you how many scripts I've gotten and people say, oh, I want to send you my script. And I go, give me a summary of your movie. And then I get so many people go, here's this, and they're so hung up on their script because they're so proud of it and they've worked for years on it. And I understand all that. And they'll send me a teaser. They want to intrigue me, and then you'll find out what happens. And I'm like, no, I want the nuts and bolts. What is your movie, beginning, middle, and end? And if you can't give me that, then, and a lot of writers don't want that. No, I want them to read the script. I want a summary and I want a log line that lets me know what is that poster. That's the other thing is these people are thinking of a thumbnail on Netflix. I had another documentary project where I have a teaser. I have a 20-minute video that makes people cry. And I had two of these that were really powerful teasers that I spent a lot of time and money making. And both of them got rejected. And both times Netflix called me up and goes, oh, we loved your teaser. We were crying. It's so heartfelt. That's amazing. We're passing. I'm like, what? You told me I made you cry and you're passing? They go, well, the thumbnail, we don't see the thumbnail as how people, because this is very important to understand about the streamers where so much business is. Streamers are in the business of subscriptions. They are not in the business of ratings. So will this project get people to sign up for a monthly subscription? That's different. They said to me on my projects, we know if people watch your documentary, they're going to love it. But it's not a well enough known person or sport that it will get people. They said, we want Drive to Survive. If you're familiar with that, it's based on Formula One. They wanted the built-in audience that would then create subscribers. Our library is already vast. We could entertain people. We have lots of deals. You have to give me something that in a thumbnail on that screen, because you guys all watch Netflix, right? You look at the little thumbnails. Yeah. I'm going to watch this. What that hook is what that needs to have. It's a fire. It's a person. It's a celebrity. It's got to have that kind of content.
I want them to read my story. Think about how will your story solve their goals and their problems? Like Paul said, is your story good enough, or if it's a series, for them to subscribe? That you have to learn their job. That's very hard as a creative to switch your brain from what am I doing to what do they need? And timing is a lot. You may write something that right now it's hard to sell, but it may not be so later, right? I have projects I've wanted to do for 30 years. The time is now, but it wasn't 30 years ago. So it's a business. Paul and I are making commercial projects. If you want to be a filmmaker for art, that is your right. And you can do that right now. You can do it on YouTube. You can get it on Hulu. You can do that. But if you want to make a living, make money, that's a different game.
Now, what qualities do you believe are most important for creative leadership and building successful teams? Because we have all these students here who want their own team, and you guys are talking some fantastic things. So what qualities do you believe are most important for creative leadership?
I would say it's a complicated question. I mean, if you're a writer, there's no team involved. It's you sitting down and typing. So if your product is a script, write your script, and you have to, but do it like Susan said, with something in mind where don't picture yourself on the mountaintop of your vision is so incredibly, brilliant that you're going to write it the way you want. Think of it as a product. Who is this for? What's the market for this? Is this a HBO Max? Is this like if you want to write for Apple TV, for example, that is super highbrow, highly sophisticated entertainment. Apple's numbers are very small in terms of viewership, but in terms of the quality, and also Apple, the problem is if you think, well, I want to do an Apple type movie like Friends and Neighbors, which is a series, as you may know, very, very, very smart. But, almost impossible because they only go with brand names of producers and directors. And if you're not a brand name yet, but then on the other hand, if you're thinking, well, I want to do something that's more commercial, Susie and I are not in the horror business at all, so I don't know anything about that really. But that's a great area to get into because they're always looking for horror movies. It's a huge part of Hollywood. Again, I don't know about it. I don't watch horror movies. So you think, what's my most practical way based on who I am? And if you're selling a product. So if I'm going to do a movie about something in the sports world, I have credentials. I have capability. When I sit in the room, you're asking someone ultimately first to make a bet and give you $250,000, $500,000, $1 million for your script. Then you're asking them to make a bigger bet to spend 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 million to make your movie and then spend the same amount to market it. So imagine going into a Vegas casino, because that's what you are. You're bringing in your chip and you're asking someone to put this down with a huge bet behind it. So you need, as a creative person, you have to come in and go, what market and what need am I fulfilling that someone is going to bet this money? So then you talk about your team. You go into like, well, if I can bring in a producer, like, say, well, I have a great real life story or I have a great script. I want to attach a producer who has credentials, who has relationships. Now, one of the reasons we're thrilled to work with Roger Birnbaum on this NASCAR movie is Roger's made $100 million movies and bigger. So when the studio has to say, here's the check, and literally here's $100 million. I mean, ultimately you hear these numbers in box office and production numbers. They're not made up numbers. They're real dollars that get spent. The studio guy, there's an old saying, you can only get fired when you say yes. As long as you're saying no, your job is safe. Yes is the worst thing you can do. So studio executives are trying to say maybe, no. Because the minute they say yes, they can lose their job. So to get them to say yes, all the stars have to align because that's a guy who's got a house in Brentwood and he wants to vacation in France. And if he loses his job and his kids can't go to private school, he's in trouble. So as long as he can push things down the road and keep pretending he's doing projects, that's what he's going to do. And you'll see that if you watch the Seth Rogen movie series, the really, what's the name of that series that's on now? That just won all the awards.
Yeah.
The comedy.
Yeah.
You'll see the executives. They're people but the minute they say yes, suddenly the machine is on. The pressure is on. Money is being spent. Their careers are on the line. So you as a creative person, you want to create as high a level of comfort as possible. Here's my script. Here's my partner. Here's my star.
Today, I always say a low budget thriller, which is a suspense thriller that's sensual, is still a really good way in because fear sells and it's relatable. When Nicole Kidman did her first movie as a producer, she did a low budget, sexy suspense thriller. It's cheaper. Realize you have to sell 30 countries. Even on a low budget.
The Others? Was it The Others?
I don't know the name of it, but she has sex with a young guy. Is that it? It just came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but I think I know the one you're talking about. Sorry to stop you. Yeah.
Another point that she made, like the challenge we have with our NASCAR movie is NASCAR is a domestic U.S. sport. The movie business is an international business. So one of the challenges we have with our project is it's NASCAR. It's Americana. It has a cultural context to it, which is not necessarily a positive one because of the nature of NASCAR and who it appeals to and who it doesn't appeal to. And it doesn't have, and Europeans look down their nose at NASCAR because they love Formula One. And we think our story is strong enough and it's not about racing. It's about friendship and brotherhood and never giving up and so on. So if you write a movie that is so specific to the United States that won't resonate overseas, that's part of the, very typically studios partner with international companies and spread their risk around.
And
so keep that in mind.
Some reality as a woman. This is a sexist, racist world. Now, I would like to change it. And I worked a lot to try to make Fanny Kimball's movie. I was a white woman making a black movie. It was not easy. The world, worse than the United States, is racist and sexist. So you're selling into all these countries. Yes, I believe one day, I hope some of your students will change that world. I want to change that world. I have a social emotional learning system for children that's taught all over the world because I was trained by Haim Saban, so he did the Power Rangers. My characters are not black and white. It's a split face. Paul came up with the idea, and they look like a Chagall painting. They're yellow and blue, right? So in animation, I can do that. I can do that in CGI. Paul and I, our kids date all manner of color and races and all of this. This is who we are. And when Paul walks into the NASCAR world, his politics are very different. And they have to feel very comfortable with him as a human. And that's why I want to do this NASCAR project. I want to bring the United States together. I wanted to do the story of Fanny Kemble. We worked with Otto Wally, who now is a very, very big actor, but he wasn't then. I want to do these great things that have theme. I've come to learn that you can do your piece in the world, whatever that is, but don't be ignorant of it. And if you need to make a living, you have to figure, okay, how do I tell this great story and make it universal enough that nobody cares then nobody cares it's about a woman, or nobody cares it's about a person of a different kind of race. This is the real world. This is why if you look at how many people are male leads that sell movies, Meryl Streep can't raise the money that Tom Cruise can. This is the reality. This is where we live, right?
That's insane too.
Right. But it's true. So, okay. Now we can break through that. I've at Disney, I negotiated to work from home. It had never been done. Now there's COVID and that happened. But, you can do these things because I made them enough money that they're like, okay, what am I going to say? I said, I don't want to be in the office politics. I'm just going to do my job. And I want to see my children. So I did the same at Saban. And the gentleman that was my secretary is still my partner today in many movies. And he's made many big movies. You build a team, you face the realities of the world, and you try to bring something so inspirational, and you're so kind in that room that they can't deny your story.
I like that. They can't deny your story. That's awesome. Absolutely. Especially that's great. It inspires me for my own project that I've been passionate about.
I want to say one other thing. Ignore everything we've said and write the purest script you can. Because ultimately, if you try to overthink it, at the end of the day, it's still going to be a piece of art. Now, all the considerations we've given you are all true. You need to put that in your mind. But at some level, you ask who influenced me. There was a gentleman at Monster Energy named Mark Hall who created that brand. And he just said to me, I believe that I'm hiring you because you're a good filmmaker. Go make the best possible film you can. Now, I knew I was making a marketing project and so on. I kept that in mind. But ultimately, when you're sitting there at that typewriter, you have to be inspired. And it's
Definitely.
it's complicated, but it's writing the truest thing you can that's really engaging and really tells a story that people want to do it. Keeping in mind, you're going to one day ask people for millions. And imagine if you walked outside your house now and said, hey, I'd like you to give me $20 million to your neighbor so I can go do this project. Sell your house, sell your car, mortgage your kid's future. Give me the money for my movie. That's really what you're doing. Now, your neighbor's not going to give you that 5 or 10 or $10 million. They're not going to give you a nickel probably. But that's what you're asking the studio to do. Or you're asking the case of a Josh Brolin. You're saying to him, your face is going to be up there. I want your name, your reputation. And Josh told me, he goes, you get about 2 or 3 mistakes in Hollywood and they throw you out. They don't care. If you have a bomb, you can get away with a bomb here or there. But if you have a couple of bombs as an actor, they're like, hey, he's toxic. Get me the guy.
You're done. Absolutely.
Like, we take care of the talent we work with. We serve them. It's a very humble job. Their fears are our fears. So they stay with us because we are worried about them. It's a very egoless place that you have to put yourself in when most of us are egomaniacs, or we wouldn't be doing this. So, pride goes out the door. It's, how do I help this other person that's involved in this project? How was their morning? What was their day like? What did they need today? I run around, I laugh. I've learned, and men particularly, because women tend to take care of themselves. I run around feeding everybody. Like, don't have a meeting if men haven't had protein. This will not go well.
Totally. Absolutely. I tell my kids the same thing. Why are you asking me this? I'm hungry. I mean, at least
There you
know
go.
how to sell it.
Feed
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
If you bake, if you do, I mean, that's you be a human. And yeah. And I want to say our mentors, frankly, they're our three sons. That's why how we got in social media. It's how we are every day humbled. They're the most critical. They said we were of them. Now they are of us. We're boomers. And
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to come on today. You're the youth. You're the next generation. We partner with young people. We have experience, but how you see the world, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody that you really, really believe in. But when you reach out to them, like I had to do with Jane at the time, or Channing Tatum, or the young people I'm working
And reaching
with
out to
today.
Jane had to be absolutely frightening, I would think. I mean,
Um,
what an icon. I mean,
But, you get to their assistants,
Yeah.
and everybody's just a person,
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
she's worried. She has all these kids. She's exhausted just like me. We're just the same,
Remember with Jane, it wasn't like we have this great story. It was, we have the story that's perfect for you. We've
I love
thought
how
it
you
through.
that's big on everything that I've taken away from everything you've said is, create something where you're not asking, you're saying, listen, Paul, this is your movie. I mean, it's perfect for it. And I love that because it's such an interesting way and a better way to sell something. And you guys have given us so much great advice today. I would love to talk to you all day. I want to open it up to questions from the students. And while we're getting those questions, I'd like to ask you both one thing. Paul, you went from surfing writing to filmmaking with your first film about Ringling Brothers. And Susan, you went from an executive to filmmaking. You were so comfortable. What made you take that leap to the scary unknown?
Well, the reality for me was I was working as a journalist in New York City, and literally I was living. I had a relationship with someone at the time, and she had a big apartment, and in this big apartment, she came from a wealthy family. There was a closet that I would go in to write because I was a journalist, and I would smoke cigarettes and sat in a windowless, airless closet writing articles and smoking in, and not realize, of course, I'm just breathing all the smoke and going, doing this. And I thought, I don't, as much as I liked it, I thought, I like being part of a team. And so that led me into production, where you still are a writer, you still have a creative thing, but you work with other people. And so for me, it was the filmmaking process. While it's very solitary at some levels, it's also a collaborative process where you become the leader. I enjoyed even though it's challenging. And when I started doing videos, and Susan and I met, actually, we met at a convention, the home video convention, the early days of home video. It's a collab, raising money, creating the product. And I didn't want to sit in a room and just write all day long. I enjoy the directing, producing questions, process.
Well, that's great. And was I correct? The Ringling Brothers was your first project?
That was actually, no, the first project I did, it was one of the earliest projects I did. I did that as a writer. The first
It's
thing
on
I did
YouTube. I
was,
watched it before this interview. Yeah, I did.
I
It
did a
was
video.
good.
I actually came along when exercise videos were just getting started. So I
Oh
made
my
an
God.
exercise video
That's
with
great.
a tennis player. And I raised some money and produced my first video kind of out of nowhere. And then Ringling Brothers was one of the
But
first
it's a
series
good
that I
point
did.
of that, because Paul had to get money from his girlfriend's family, his own family. Like, if you don't feel that you can do that, right, then the project, like, you have to do that, right? You have to be able to turn to your
Yeah.
friends, everybody you know. Like, he had to do that.
Yeah.
So we have our first question from Jim.
Yeah.
If you have a proof of concept film already made, how hard is it to get funding and still maintain creative control if it's based off a true personal story?
Well, the first part is when someone says they want to maintain creative control, they're out of their mind. So,
and why are they out of their mind?
Because it's not your money.
Got
the
it.
person who's putting up, if you are fortunate enough to sell it, so whoever's putting up the money has final creative control. And the fact that someone even says that, I would run out of the room. I would say, I don't want to talk to this person. They're delusional.
So that's first. Don't say that. Don't
Do
say
not
that.
say you want
Just
creative
keep it in
control.
your mind, like Susan and Paul and
You're not, unless you want to write the check for 50 million or 10 million, whatever it is to make your movie, you have no, now you can be an advocate for your project, but as soon as I hear someone say that, and I've had that, oh, I have a project, but I want to have control of it. I don't want to talk to that person. They're delusional. They're going to be difficult. They're going to want to argue about things.
Put it in another way, from our point of view, that's talking like a child. That's not professional, right?
And how do they get funding? What's some steps to get funding?
That's why I'd say go to the American film market and learn.
Well,
you can look at the website to do that because, go ahead.
I was going to say, you have a film. Okay, you have a proof of concept with maybe some AI type film and this and that. Okay, let's put a package together. Who could star in this movie? Who's going to direct this movie? How do I get to this person? Oh, I think this actor is the right person for it. One thing about actors, a lot of them want to be producers and directors, even though they haven't. So if you have the right project and you go, take Leonardo DiCaprio, who probably is unobtainable given his stature, but he's a crazy environmentalist. Right? That's his thing. He loves the environment. So you think, okay, my movie is about saving the earth from, whatever. I'm going to contact him in some way through somebody to say, I have a movie and here's the hook to it. And it's about the environment. Again, not very good chance you're going to get to Leonardo.
No, but you're making a good point. I'm not going to sell Rocky to Leonardo DiCaprio because he doesn't like boxing or doesn't watch it. That's absolutely.
You have to build your package, right? So you want to go out to talent, and you don't have to have the biggest name. Depending on, let's say you're Emmy, you can aim for a low budget, or like a low budget streaming would have been television years ago. So you want a middle level person, but maybe they're known all over the world, right? Simon Baker comes to mind. He was Australian. He did The Mentalist. Do you think of him all the time? No, huge name to a distributor, to some distributors, right? Do you think everybody's knocking down his door all the time anymore? Probably not. There's lots of, another name comes to mind, Tobin Bell. He's the star of all the Saw movies. He's now 83. He's phenomenally talented. Is he probably reachable? Sure. I mean, you want to build a package that makes sense for one of these smaller distributors at somebody like AFM. That's real. So when you walk in, you go, I have this actor attached. Would you consider reading? Because I've seen all your movies and it fits. You sell a lot of thrillers. You sell Christmas movies. You sell, here's another one, right? So you need to find a distributor that fits your project. So
that makes so much sense. Thank you, guys. And we have another question from Freddie McDuffie. He's asking, what advice would you give a person who recently graduated film school? He's got an LLC. He's making micro-budget films locally in Houston, but he wants to make movies and money on a larger scale. And he's also a veteran. Thank you for your service, 20 plus years.
And I would say, find the one project. I mean, the fact that you're making micro-budget stuff is great. Obviously, I'm sure you heard the YouTube guy has this big hit thing.
Yeah, and Freddie's really hitting it. He's doing any project after project, micro projects a lot.
Find the one project, again, if you want to make a big feature film, which is the one you want to focus on. And then start putting that together. Whether you could do a proof of concept, because you obviously know how to make a short film. Who's the actor? Who's the star? Who's the director? If you're insistent that you want to be the director, that's okay. But now you have to understand you've created a hurdle for you. Now, the old story, Sylvester Stallone, they wanted to buy Rocky from him. The script was written and they wanted to throw him off. They didn't want him to star. They didn't want him to direct it. He ended up insisting on it. He had a happy ending to that story, as you know. So it's nice that you had this background with lots of, pick the one project and ultimately you want to have a full script. I mean, the script is what people are going to read. If you can say, here's my other projects.
And you don't have to have written it. There's lots of out-of-work writers. We always try to get the best. Reach out to them. Find the writer that you think is phenomenal, not just okay, phenomenal. And I want to go back quickly and say to that poor guy who asked a wonderful question, and we kind of said, oh my God, don't say that. I want to say this is a safe space here. And that's why we said that. Good for you. Good for you to have done a proof of concept. Good for you to have made a film. Wow. So I do want to at least say the positive, wow, that was something. So that was a big deal.
Yeah, what Jim really wanted, he's a recent graduate. He wants to keep the story more true to what actually happened. And he's afraid if somebody else, concerned that somebody else might want to go more, we got to do cinematic experience. So
the answer is if you want to is to have your vision, and at some point you have to have faith in the people you're partnering with. That's what we said to Kim and Cricket Carpenters. I cannot guarantee how your story is going to be told, but I will tell you there is one thing you can do though in the real life world, which we did with Kim and Cricket Carpenter. They said, look, in our relationship, we did not have premarital sex and we didn't smoke cigarettes. In a contract, which is where you're going to end up one day, you can't write stuff like, I will not be portrayed in a negative way, or I can't be looked at, you can't disparage me. You can't use words like that because negative is too vague. A studio is not going to make a movie for $50 million and you go, well, I think it's a little negative. Please change my movie. It's not going to happen. If in your story, the gentleman you mentioned, if you have specific things you want to keep that integrity, we did not become spies for the Cold War. We did, or in this case, the Carpenters were Christians and they were like, we did not have premarital sex. That's really important to us. A specific thing like that can be put into a contract. So you can keep certain specific integrity things, but you can't put anything in a contract that leaves any vagaries of subjective judgment because a studio is not going to risk millions of dollars on someone's subjective opinion. I don't like the way I'm portrayed or in that. Because remember, in a scene, you're going to have a downbeat and then an upbeat. So you're going to make the person go through something before they come on the other side of it. Some people don't like it. So the answer is you're not going to have total creative control, but you can try. But the real thing is, who are you going into business with? If you're going into business with someone who has integrity, they want your story for what they want
it for. I want to say that too. I don't think we've said that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everyone Paul and I have worked with that's made us better has made us better because they're smarter. You guys are, if most of your students are at the beginning, none of this, I want to keep it. How about the possibility that everyone you work with is going to bring something phenomenal to you and it's going to get better? I love when Paul and I argue and then it's like the better thing bubbles up. When I'm on this project right now and we're so many drafts into the script and the writer came in and then the director rewrote, I'm giggling to myself. Everybody's ego, they're all in pain. It's getting better. I see it get better. And then sometimes I admit to you, I'll fib and I'll say, oh, these are the marketing notes we got. They're not. They're from me. But, they didn't want to hear from me anymore. It's like, okay, I get it. They needed to be from anybody, just not me. But it's getting better. So how about the idea that if you find, like Paul just said, you trust your team, you find great people, that you're like, I'm thrilled to let go. These people are so good at what they do. It's going to get better.
Thank you so much, Susan. That is, and Paul. And we just have one more final question. Thank you for sitting with us. Appreciate your time. Now, when you're pitching, Jesse wants to know, do you ever pitch with a certain song or vibe in mind along with that pitch?
I have, as a rule, I don't. To me, it's about story because I'm more of a story person. But, when you walk into the room, if you're lucky enough to get into the room, anything you can do to sell project. Now, the flip side is I had a project once with someone and it was set in the 70s. It was a drug running story. And so the guy came in with, I forget the name of a couple of bands, and the executives were really young. So the 70s, 80s music, they were like, what? We never heard of Creedence Clearwater. Like, it looked like, we made us look kind of weird and ancient. They didn't like any of the music because they never heard of it. We thought these were these great songs because we grew up with them. And the movie was a period piece and it totally turned them off. So, I
would say yes, though. Here's us arguing. So Paul and I just did a film. It was shortlisted for an Academy Award. You can find it now. It just released on Apple and Amazon. It's called Butterfly on a Wheel. It's about OCD, but the writer, director, producer, it's based on his true life. His name is Trevor Morris. He's one of the greatest composers of our time. This is jazz music. It's fabulous. You can watch it. It's 32 minutes. It's all about music. It takes place in a concert hall. It's about love of music. That is what it is. So if that is what it is, and your project is music driven, I do. And frankly, I love when there's music cues in the script. I'm one of those people that I'm crazy because I like a much longer script where it practically feels like the director wrote it. I just got called out the other day for that. So I had the writer make director's notes separate so that the screenplay wasn't so long. But I love discussions of setting and climate, and I love all that stuff. Now, I'm crazy like that. Other people do not maybe want that. They want a skinnier more skeletal screenplay. Maybe I need that, like I get lost. I love feeling, in Big, the movie Big, the wind is a character. In Body Heat, which I always tell everybody to watch, it's a little slow, but it's phenomenal. Every shot's a tableau. Heat. Every scene is heat. There's heat is sexy. The heat is making people crazy and pushing them to make decisions. I love those things. So back to music, all of those things. And I would say Paul's documentaries are so good because of the sound design and music. We've been nominated for music Emmys separate. Eddie Aikau was nominated for a music Emmy separate than just the Emmy. So sound design, when you see his sports stuff, you're watching maybe guys skiing, but you're hearing broken glass and gunshots. That's all augmented. So documentary really has so many meanings today. It's not true in that those sound effects, those are created. It's sound design.
Paul, Susan, I can talk to you all day, but I can't serve you food to keep the protein in the belly. I can't do that. Thank you so much. Paul, look forward to getting that first surfing lesson. And
Hey, come on out.
you guys are so awesome. I love your energy, and all the students here are clapping and thanking and hugging you so much. I'd like to leave the students with one question, and this is a question I have asked every person that's older than me, a little older than me, or have done it. So we're about to graduate from college in film school. If you can go back to your younger self, because now you've lived it, you know what to do, what advice would you give yourself? Paul, you can go first.
My advice would be, if I made a mistake, was I didn't have enough confidence to think I could be a director. The word scared me. So I'm a producer, I'm a filmmaker, dream big, dream as big as you possibly can. Because, if you dream small, you're going to end up small. I dreamed sort of medium and then was able to move up a little bit. But I would say, anybody in this course, you're making a leap of faith on a very difficult path. So if you're going to do that, you might as well go for as big as you possibly
Might
can.
as well shoot for the stars.
Because look, you want to be up there one day saying, thank you, the Academy. Right? That's what everybody's thinking about, is what that speech is going to be. And I'm telling you, the odds of making it, I don't have to tell you that they're long. Leave it at that. But you might as well dream as big as you can and walk in with that confidence, with the practicality of the stuff that Susan was talking about. In other words, don't be like, I'm going to, you could tell we reacted harshly to the idea of I want creative control. Don't turn people off, but think as big as you can, and think you want to be able to be in the room with these really smart, intense people, and you're equal to them, but you're also part of a team. It's about you, but it's also about a group. And you want to, if you can think as big as you can and be confident and never give up. That's the biggest lesson there is.
And then when you're stressed out, go surf.
There you go, if you can. Yep.
Yes. How about you, Susan? If you could go back to that yourself, graduating college, I couldn't find much on you after college, except I believe you just went right to the executive role. But what advice would you give yourself if you had a couple minutes?
I was a secretary first at CBS and Children's Television. It's funny. This is where Paul and I are a good team. I'm a giant dreamer. I still have, as I said, I want to do this Doris Lessing project that I mentioned that I've been working on for years. She won the Nobel Prize. And I've wanted to do this project 30 years. I have giant, crazy dreams. And I'm intensely practical. Get a job, if you can, where you learn from somebody. These are subservient jobs. I was a secretary. I was on set the other day when we were making that short in Toronto. It was last summer. And somebody came in going, I need to find Susan Cooper. I need to find Susan Cooper. We had a problem. I was scrubbing the toilet, okay, because the talent was coming in. I had gloves on and all that. And I had a cute outfit. But
it's important that you have a cute outfit on. I like that.
It is. But this is this business. I became indispensable because you want to, there's a great book called, I think it's called The Leader Without a Title. I would say read that book. I became indispensable to every boss I ever had. I was 21 years old at CBS and children's programming. I did my boss's job. I couldn't at first, but I'd been a secretary for my father, and I worked since I was 14. So I had a skill set, some kind of skill set. Create some kind of skill set, use that skill set, and then go work for somebody. I also worked for a producer who threw chairs. He was scary. But he had launched many great people's careers. You're in a position where you have to work for somebody else. The idea is that somebody else, I hope, is not too brutal and isn't too horrible and isn't too much of a bully. But looking back, and I look at my kids today, they all had rough coaches. They've had rough first jobs. I had many of those. I still have rough things that I deal with. But that's how you learn. So I'm kind of sorry to say it, I guess to say, but you have to put food on the table. So you got to take care of yourself. There are no, in my day, you could at least go get a secretarial job, right? Or a temp. I told everybody, be a temp secretary, right? Because then you tempt for all these different executives at the studios.
Yeah, very
that
good.
doesn't exist today, I don't think. Social media does. I'd say become an expert in social media. Go do social media for somebody. Those are storytelling jobs, and there's a ton of them. That's the closest I can think to. And try and see, because today, any big guy, woman, I don't need a secretary, right? I do all that myself. So there aren't these entry-level jobs that existed. Social media is a really great area where storytelling exists and jobs exist, tons of them. Social media for every kind of company, that is storytelling. Content, you're making content. And then I remember every step-up job that I ever had was usually some element where I had to become indispensable to their need. And then in turn, though, I learned. I have one quick story I can tell you. So the guy that threw chairs was a producer named Edgar Sherrick. He launched Woody Allen's career, Meryl Streep's career, ABC Wide World of Sports. He was rough. I worked for him in New York. And one day he was on the phone and he was screaming at somebody, and I peeled an orange and I was sort of frightened, and I slid the peeled orange under him, and he looked up because he ate a piece, right? It was a blood sugar deal. And he ate a piece and he said, "You're ready to produce." And I got my first movie.
I love that. That has to be my favorite story of everything. You just knew. Okay, let's give the guy a little. Susan, Paul, thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. We're hugging you. And we thank you for your extra time. Have a fantastic day. And
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
we all hope to work with you and surf those waves with you.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody come on and say hello and say thank you to Susan and Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
everybody.
Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.